Thank you and welcome to the Thursday edition of Bloomberg Sound On. Little Friday, as we call it around here, and not a lot has changed from this time yesterday as we consider the lack of motion on Capitol Hill when it comes to not only funding our government, but finding another Speaker of the House. As we prepare to talk this out with Brad Sherman, we actually heard some advice from the other chamber. Republican leader Mitch McConnell loathed to give advice to Kevin McCarthy, at least publicly during his tenure as Speaker, and he clearly does not want to see this again.
I have no advice to give to House Republicans except one. I hope whoever the next Speaker is gets rid of the motion to vacate. I think it makes the Speaker's job impossible, and the American people expect us to have a functioning government.
Get rid of the motion to vacate. That's where we begin our conversation with Congressman Brad Sherman. He's with us, of course, the Democrat from California, back on Bloomberg. It's good to see you, sir, and I appreciate your time. I'd like to ask you about this entire process, but I wonder if you agree with Mitch McConnell. You weighed in back in January in the Speaker's fight, saying at some point here Republicans need to work with Democrats. Can they do that while there's still a motion to vacate?
They will try to perhaps change the rules to get rid of the motion to vacate. I doubt Democrats will help them do that. When we take the majority in 2024, I'm sure we will not have a motion to vacate. But if they're going to ask us to help them change the rules, we've got a lot of rules that we think we ought to change.
Well, there we go. So let's get into this just a little bit here. I wonder your thoughts, first of all, on Republicans blaming Democrats for firing Kevin McCarthy. That's the narrative that we've been hearing from a lot of GOP lawmakers, Congressman. You voted to oust Kevin McCarthy.
Every Democrat voted to vacate the chair. We don't think that Kevin McCarthy is a good speaker. We think Hakeem Jeffries would be an excellent speaker. If we can't get him installed this year, we've got next year.
What do you think is going to happen next week? And I know that you're looking at this from the Democratic side of the aisle, and nobody's consulting you right now on Jim Jordan versus Steve Scalise, but you know these individuals.
I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Scalise in the number one position and Jordan in the number two position. I also wouldn't be surprised if we have continuing chaos. But I think their craziest members may have gotten their pound of flesh. They may have and may be willing to abide by the tradition, which is if your caucus selects a leader, you vote for that leader for Speaker of the House. But if even 5 of their members don't decide to go along with that tradition, we voted for Hakeem Jeffries 15 times last roll call back in January, and we're ready to do it again 15 times or 115 times.
And you'll be voting for Hakeem Jeffries.
115 times.
According to many, has been very disruptive and will be to the process of funding the government. Congressman, are you bracing for a shutdown on November 17th?
Absolutely. I mean, even if McCarthy had gotten what he wanted was to pass a resolution, as crazy as people wouldn't vote for, that slashed food for pregnant women and infants, that slashed federal aid to education around the country. That was what he wanted. Now, you can imagine the Democrats in the Senate aren't going to take that up. So I would suspect that we're going to have some very tough negotiations. And the question will be whether any compromise is one, A, that a new Republican speaker is willing to accept, and B, maybe they move to vacate the chair at their extremes, because I can be sure nothing that can pass the Senate is going to get Gates to vote for it. So the only way to keep the government open is to have a speaker who's willing to put on the floor a bill that Gates won't vote for.
Congressman, I want to ask you about the economy and the trajectory of interest rates from your perch on the Financial Services Committee. This is something we've discussed before, of course, the battle against inflation. We're hearing higher for longer. And we spoke today on Bloomberg with Mary Daly, the San Francisco Fed president. Here's what she said.
My job as I see it, our job as I see it, is not to tighten, just do our part. It's to watch financial conditions, because monetary policy works. We raise the funds rate, and it moves through all the other interest rates. If financial conditions are sufficiently tight, our work is not necessary because we don't need to boost them more.
Where do you think we're going with this, Congressman? Higher for longer is the narrative right now, but we've seen this change on a dime depending on the trajectory of the economy. Tomorrow we're going to get jobs numbers. Will that be another inflection point?
It'll be another one. If I knew where interest rates were going, I wouldn't be on this TV show with you. I'd be on the phone with my broker. But I would say that the recent decline in oil prices will certainly help control inflation. Oil is not only what we pay at the pump, but it's based into the transportation cost of everything you buy. So I'm hoping that we can get inflation controlled without going higher for longer, but we'll see.
You think the Fed should hike again or start preparing for rate cuts? I think you've been pretty consistent on this, but the data prices have been stubborn.
I think they have to be data driven. I have argued for a 2.3% target rather than a 2% target, but whichever target you have, it's still above that number. And it is so hard to manage the economy using interest rates when their main effect is months after you make the decision. It would be like driving a car where when you turn the wheel, you go half a mile before the effect of that.
I can't talk to you without bringing up your favorite topic, which of course is crypto. And we're watching the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried unfold here. You wrote on Twitter, "Crypto bros will say SBF was one snake in a crypto Garden of Eden. In truth, though, crypto, you say, is a garden of snakes." You go on to write, "While his ghost still roams the halls of Congress today, he faces justice." How is his ghost still alive in Congress? Are you referring to donations that have gone unreturned?
More his advocacy for bills that would get the SEC out of the crypto world and provide only a patina of regulation through the CFTC. His goal, his reason for being here in this very building, the Rayburn building, was to try to get the SEC out of crypto. And that in itself tells you we got to get the SEC more into crypto. This is a currency that has no advantage over the dollar, except in its name. It is literally hidden money. And when you see a New Jersey senator with gold bars and huge amounts of cash, you realize just how more efficient that would be in a crypto world where you don't need cash, you don't need gold bars. You just have secret accounts and unhosted wallets.
I understand there's an eviction underway in the Capitol, Congressman. I wonder your thoughts on Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer losing their hideaway space. One of the first actions, if not the first, taken by the new acting speaker, Patrick McHenry.
I think this is an incredibly petty move. It has no political benefit except within the Republican caucus, where they can say, "Look, we just smacked down two Democratic leaders," and maybe that will make them feel good enough to unite behind a new speaker. But it's a really bad face for the Republican Party.
Thanks for being back with us, Brad Sherman, Congressman from California, here on Bloomberg Sound On.